sometimes I may feel like I'm in the back burner, but
Right.
it's not really that. It's we're evolving as humans, which is what you're supposed to do.
Right.
So yeah, you're marrying the unknown, and again, like, how do men deal with that? How do women deal with that? So
Right.
it's never a thing where it's just a one script, one blueprint. You're
Right.
continuously trying to figure things out, communication, and I want to have real conversations about how people deal with these things.
Yeah.
Today's episode is brought to you by Chula Wear, the largest provider of board shorts, bodybuilding trunks, and briefs in the world. Visit their IG at Chula Styles or their website, teamchulafitness.com.
Yes, indeed. We are back inside the mind. I am your host, John Reese, and we have a very, very special guest in the building that I could not wait to have this conversation with. She is adored in the industry, IFBB Pro in the bikini division. It only took her 3 shows to turn national. She turned pro at the Junior USAs in 2021, and she won the overall, which is very hard to do. Do not sell yourself short on that one. She's done 5 pro shows, including her pro debut, where she almost qualified for Olympia. She took 2nd place next to the former Miss Olympia, Miss Ashley. So, and she's been competing since 2015. None other than Miss Cory. How are you doing today, man?
I'm good. Yeah, end of the week, which end of the week, fully end of the week. But is it really a weekend when you work like every day? I know with what you do,
No.
it's like, no, it's like just another day in the office. So kind of the same for me. Client work, recording, podcasting, then I'm gonna go train. Yeah, life is good.
Yeah, I wish I had weekends. It's one of those things where, because I actually just switched back to working with the county of San Bernardino, and
Mm.
I was so used to working from home. Now I'm in the office, and then I still train clients, and then, like you said, I got to do my own training. In fact, I got to go see my coach right after talking to you. I got to drive out. So yeah, the weekend is a thing, but just not for everybody, I guess. So.
No, no, that's good. Is it what kind of meeting is it with your coach? Is it just
Oh,
like
no,
a
I gotta
check-in?
train. I gotta
Oh, you
train,
gotta
but
train. You gotta
yeah,
train.
I
Alright.
did my check-ins earlier this morning. We're on track. I'm 11
Nice.
weeks out. I'll be going to the Wasatch Warriors show, and getting my 2nd season underway after taking a year and a half off.
Wow.
So
Okay,
we'll see how it
Wasatch.
goes. Yeah.
I might have a seminar out there at the refinery gym this year. We're putting something together, but gosh, it was nice being out there, for the seminar with, like, Steve DeVore and stuff. So
Mhm.
maybe the times will line up. Maybe we'll get to meet in person. Come see you compete. You
We
said
will, because I know you're going to another one in March that I'm dying to go to in North Carolina. I seen you on the flyer.
Are you really? Oh, that's
Yeah.
wild. Okay.
So I talked to
There we
Mike,
go.
and I would love to start speaking at these seminars, of course, once I'm notable enough to do so. But I'm going definitely as a nerd in this sense, and willing to learn from everybody that's there. I love education. I love just being a fly on the wall and just listening to everyone's experiences and what they have to offer, and taking the notes back and see if I can apply it. So I'm definitely going to that one. So
That's gonna be exciting. Well, there we go. We already got something in the books. Um, yeah. Wow, that's gonna come up soon here too. It's like 4 weeks away, right?
yeah, I'm
Yeah.
looking for flights now. I need to hurry up because I literally just seen it. So we'll
Nice,
see.
nice.
But yeah, welcome to Inside the Mind. I want to start where you actually got your start into bodybuilding. Who influenced you, if anyone? Like, what made you say, you know what, I want to compete? Like, where did that come from?
So it was 2014. I was in my like 2nd year of college. I had actually moved out to New York. I was dating a guy who knew I was into working out, weightlifting. And around the time, I think that's when Instagram, like it was becoming popularized for girls to post their bodies in like So I want to say like a sporty way, like bikini competitions were becoming a thing. And I would see these girls, and growing up, I was exposed to bodybuilding like from a distance. I was exposed to weightlifting. But when I saw these girls, I'm like, wow, like they look like these Victoria's Secret models. Like they're gorgeous, but they have muscle, which I really like. I like that look. And prior to that, I'd been tracking macros. I'd been, trying to gain some degree of control over body composition just through diet. And when I saw what was happening, to these girls' bodies as they were doing these shows, I'm like, that's really cool. It's admirable. It's a sport, but it is very specific to, building their composition. Um, was with someone who didn't really support that interest, which is okay. I mean, like it's everyone's flavor, it's fine. But that kind of made me want to do it. Like, I mean, like if we're getting like into really the grittiness of what made me want to get into competing, I mean, I had this desire to do this thing, and even though someone I cared about, like they're like, "Oh no, like I don't want you to put on any muscle. Like you want to be hot, you want to be feminine. Like why don't you just lose weight? Like why don't you just keep losing weight?" Which, like, mind you,
Wow.
I was skinny, and like uh, when we broke up, I was like, "Man, you know what? This is kind of something I think I'm leaning into. Like I think I want to just see." And at the time, Lane Norton, so Bio Lane, he was
Mm.
really going hard in like shifting the essence of how I guess how people were getting on stage, like with flexible dieting, introducing the idea of, it's not as like nuanced as coaches may want you to think. And a lot of it's pretty simple. It's like grade school math. Like when it comes, like we're talking like barely dose calc. So I started educating myself just more on the on that aspect, on the nutrition side. Um, Decided to just start prepping for my first show. And I was like, you know what? I'm not going to pay someone like $800 to starve me for some, like I can starve myself like history. Okay. So I dieted down and did my first show as a teen. And yeah, that was really the point that I initially got into the sport.
Wow. That's amazing, actually. So you ended up doing your first prep on your own, no coach, no nothing?
Yep.
Uh, the Ironically, that makes a lot of sense just based off your Instagram. Like, you are very intelligent, I kid you not. Like, you're gonna get a lot of
Mm,
compliments from me that I get from a lot of other people to kinda tell you these things, and I was gonna tell you anyway. But again, like, just the education portion that you bring. But you mentioned how there was like this stigma when it comes to, women and putting on muscle, and how, quote unquote, certain people want you to look feminine, whatever that means, as far as however they perceive it. But did you ever struggle with that, as far as like the look of how, women have to have, for the bodybuilding stage versus what society may want to portray it to be?
Not as much as I think other women do, but that's largely to do with how I was raised. I was kind of pushed into uh, encompassing less feminine energy. My dad always wanted a boy. He still says that. He's like, I wish you had been a boy. Like they gave me two boy names, so I mean, like they he was
Sorry,
really gunning
sorry,
for that.
dad.
Exactly. He knows it. It's like one of those things. But growing up, I didn't identify with like a lot of the societal aspects of, being feminine. So I think it's something I realize a lot of women do struggle with as they put on more muscle, become just further integrated into the sport. For me, it actually felt the opposite because in bikini, it's like it is the most feminine division. And I struggled more with feeling like there wasn't a degree of respect that I wanted being in that division because of how feminine it was comparatively to the other divisions.
Wow, that's interesting. Especially bikini is one of the most, not well, not one. I think it is the most popular division in bodybuilding.
Right.
I think it's more obtainable than the other divisions, if I could say. So
Totally.
yeah, that's interesting how you felt the opposite. So That's good to hear. So you turned pro, you won the overall. Take me back to that specific time. Wait, hold on. Did you prep yourself for that show too?
No, no.
Okay.
So I took some time off. I did my first 4 shows. There was a local coach I kinda used for my second one, but it was right after my very first show. So when you look at the framework of like prep and getting as lean as you need to, I mean, I hired someone only to kind of realize, you know what, like this, there's not really a lot of magic to it. That was my second show. Took time off after the first 4. Was finishing school, moved to Virginia, started, getting into the social media marketing side for my sponsor. At the time, uh, I didn't really compete for 3, 4 years. I came
Mm.
back in 2020. One of my best friends, Andrew Walker, he's a men's physique pro, and I mean, like, he's just legend. Like, he's just such a good person in the sport and out of the sport. And at the time, which this is 2020, so we're at like a speakeasy gym, like literally, and he's like, "You should
It's
just
COVID.
prep." Exactly, yeah.
Mhm.
He's like, "You should just prep. Like, you should like." It's like crazy to me that you're not competing, and I forced him into prepping me. He's like, "You." I mean, he'll say it to this day. He's like, "You didn't need it," but truly, like without him, I wouldn't have gotten back into the sport. So I did regional show, now 2 national shows with him, switched gears, started working with a really popular coach for not just bikini competitors, just really popular coach for, getting those pro cards. Um, Murdered myself, and, yeah, turned to pro, got the overall, but I mean, it's a story I've talked about. It's been a long time since I've shared it, like, on a podcast. But the amount of self-doubt I had the morning of junior nationals, I mean, or junior USA, sorry, I got my makeup done, which is, like, not cheap, and I literally went back to my hotel room, got in bed, and I was like, "I wanna cry this $200 makeup off, like, I do not wanna get on stage today, like, I don't think I'm ready. I really wish I wasn't competing today, like, I hope I don't embarrass myself." And, yeah, I mean, I feel like it's a very significant part, at least, to me, in how that actually went down, because a lot of people think like, "Oh, you just gotta manifest it. You just gotta, shout these affirmations at yourself and you'll believe it." And like, I think a lot of people, maybe not a lot of people, I think for myself, it's like, that's not the approach you can take with everyone. It's not gonna be enough, even if you do it, it's still there's a type of athlete who's probably always gonna struggle seeing what's right in front of them.
Yeah, you know what? I so manifestations, affirmations, like all those, well, they're not cliches because I definitely practice them and believe in them, but that's not an everyday thing. Like there's days like this morning when I gotta send my check-ins, it's just like, man, I don't know. Knowing I've been on track all week and I've been saying, my check-ins are gonna get good. I'm gonna be good. Wake up this morning, I'm staring at the scale because now we have weight caps. So I hate that scale, but whatever. So we have weight caps now, and I'm just like, whatever. Let's just get it over. But again, like those little doubts, thoughts, those things, like they creep in, whenever they decide to. And for you, the day before or the day of, you won the overall. It's crazy how that set in. And so what feelings were you having? Like nervous, anxiousness, like kind of walk through some of the things you were kind of telling yourself to allow that to kind of creep in like that.
Really, what I was feeling, was uncertainty, and then I think, I mean, even more specific, very dysmorphic, because
Mm,
I mean, looking back, it's clear now I wasn't, and this isn't a knock because I think communication goes both ways. The coach I had, our communication wasn't what I needed. I couldn't really be 100% myself or honest about what I was feeling, and that is partially on me too. But I think, that was a serious pain point. So I felt very alone. Like I felt like, okay, he's telling me one thing, what I'm seeing is not reflected with what he's telling me. And I think that's the degree of honesty I need from someone, like someone that I'm putting a lot of trust into, is I need them to be able to say like, oh, you're not ready, or you're not quite there, but it doesn't mean you're not going to win. Like it doesn't mean you might not do really well, but realistically, like the my boyfriend at the time, he was that beacon of truth. Like he was like, your tie-ins aren't in. Like 2 days before, he's like, they're not there. You
Oh,
still have like 7 pounds to lose. Like, and truly, like that is one of my favorite things about my ex is he would be very honest with me. And I think if you can't have that in a relationship, even in the coach client relationship, for someone who's very sensitive like myself, like, I mean, you pick up on that and it begins to be hard to trust anything. So, I kind of went in thinking like, all right, well, I know what to do in terms of like the actionable, the task. I get on stage, I perform, I hope for the best. I don't do anything to self-sabotage this, outside of mentally what I'm doing to myself right now. And I mean, yeah, yeah.
wow. So first of all, like my wife's the same, but she'll no, she won't sugarcoat it either. Never mind. Like you hate to hear it, but it's the truth. So it's just one of those things. Like even this, because again, being in my head, she was like, "No, you're fine. You're leaning out. Like you're good." And I'm like, I don't know if that's the truth. But then there's other times, like even the off season, you're trying to keep it together. Yeah, you might want to scale back on the food you've been eating. And it's just really like, okay, you're supposed to be on my side, but whatever. So you go through that spill of doubt. You hit the stage and you actually win. Talk to me about that moment of that transition mentally, because of course that morning you didn't believe you weren't even ready. So to go from one extreme to the next, like how did that feel?
Ah, proof of concept is something I think is really important to rely on when and where it matters. Now, I think in bodybuilding, there's a lot of reasons and ways that um, tend to result in the outcome not reflecting the individual's effort, even though this was like by far the hardest prep I had ever done. Like I pushed well past what I needed to do, but also to extremes I didn't think I could handle. Um, I didn't really expect it. So when it was happening, I mean, like, for Junior USA's, for listeners who might not be familiar, this is one of the national shows where you can win your class, but if you don't place top 4 in the overall, you don't get your pro card. So I mean, like that to me, that sucks. Like there were like 2 or 3 girls like who did not they won their class, they're going home with the first place, but did not turn pro. And it's
Oh
like,
yeah, that sucks.
I'm like, so in my class, I first call outs, okay, put center stage. This is one of those things in my competitive career. I've seen a lot of um, objective success on stage. I've never gotten second call outs at this point. And I mean, so it was just like every other. Oh, you play in the center, okay. You do the two-person comparison, cool. Okay, well, there's a 50% chance I'm gonna win. Like that's won my class, cool. When I went to the overall, I'm looking at these girls and I'm like, yeah, they look incredible. They look like they won their class. And I remember when they're calling out, like, um, I think they only call out like the top 4. I don't even think fifth and sixth, maybe seventh get a trophy. I might be wrong there. And I just assumed when they said fourth, I'm like, "Oh, I didn't get it." Like, 'cause I'd already in
Mm.
my head, I'm like, "Yeah, maybe I got 4th, 3rd." And then they called 2nd, and I was like, "Oh, that's me. I'm only there's, like, only my number left." I'm like, "Damn. Well, that's not what I was expecting." And, um, yeah, I mean, getting off stage, it was overwhelming. I mean, because it was something that, like, I I really think, like, a lot of what our sport entails, the minimum ask mentally is you have to be prepared to not be rewarded for your efforts. Majority of what we do, there's going to be no tangible reward. Even intangible, there's not going to be a reward. It's all about what you make of it. So when it does, when there is something tangible that you get to walk away with, I mean, like, I do it too. I shit on the whole, like, oh, what are you doing it for? A plastic trophy? It's like, yeah, but you know what this plastic trophy represents? This is all the times I didn't get a plastic trophy. Like,
Uh-huh.
this is like a decade of no trophies, or even in the case of no progression forward. So I mean, like, I got off stage, and it was, yeah, it was overwhelming because it was like, "Oh, this is the one thing I can't argue with myself about. I can't downplay it. I won,
Mhm.
and I beat 130 girls who worked very, very hard." And, if that's what I was able to do, not at my best, it doesn't even mean my best will result in a better outcome. But, it was, one of those things. Was like, "Oh, like me to me, I'm like, argue with this. Like find a way, find a reason
No,
you don't deserve this." And I mean,
absolutely.
it's kind of paints a picture for the inner dialogue I have. But um yeah, I think it the objectives, they they're really sweet, particularly when they're improbable.
Yeah, you can't argue with winning because, like you said, we do a lot of this for intangible stuff. And sometimes the tangible could be like, again, I'm trying to get one day better. And did I successfully complete everything that I did that I was supposed to do on my checklist? Yes. Okay, that's a tangible based off the checklist that I created. But we all want to win. We want, trophies, like whether you put validation in that or not. I tend to do so based off, okay, for all this work that I've done, I want something. You know what I mean? So, and then I have to scale back from that too, because there's only one winner. So sometimes that something is just making it to the stage, but
Mm.
you made it to the stage, you made it through first call outs, you won your class and you won the overall. And yeah, you won that plastic trophy. So and kudos to you. Congratulations to that. And now we are here. And then you mentioned how you we may not get anything and you put in all that work, which sometimes is the sucky part about it. And I was going through your IG about a post about embracing the suck. So, in the bodybuilding world, what does that mean specifically to you? And then two-part question is, how does that affect us mentally as far as that term embracing the suck and what we have to go through to even get to that stage of pain in a sense?
So embrace the suck. I'm going to relate this for all the nerds listening to the hormetic curve. So, hormesis, this window of opportunity that something toxic, something objectively bad for us can make us better in the long run. Like, there's a small window. And to me, that is what we're chasing after. So, we're after something that ultimately is painful. It's hard. It is the opposite of what our body is wanting to do, or starving ourselves. That's like what it is. We're ignoring, disassociating, repressing these feelings, and we're doing it with this purpose of, achieving something that is intrinsic, that only we can recognize, only we can understand, what it means or what it does for us. And I think the price is so small when you think about, like, your body will never, like your mind, you won't be able to conjure up that feeling of pain. Like, even happy memories, good, I mean, you can conjure those up, I think, a little easier. You can reflect back on them.
Mhm.
We're pretty terrible historians, though, when it comes to negative emotions. Like, that's our defense mechanism. It's amazing, right? So,
Yes.
uh, it's like you get through it one way or another, and hopefully in a way that's not harmful to you. And as long as you're not overshooting and overreaching with this thing that objectively is hard and painful, you're gonna reap the benefits. But the only way you're gonna get to that point is through it. There's no way to go around it. There's no way to, I don't know, circumvent it. You just You just get through it.
And look, if there was a way around it, I would have found it already. I'm trying to tell
Yep.
you. So
You and
my
you and
first,
me both.
yes, my first year I did 6 shows. They were like back to back to back to back. And in the second year, 2020, COVID, 2 national shows. It was just like, you got close, not good enough. So then the third year when I turned pro, it was one of those things where I didn't want to lose my pro card by 1 point, because I lost it at Universe when it was in South Carolina, and I didn't want to feel that no more. Like, I really didn't. So I told myself, like, you know what, you have to be willing to run through this brick wall if this is something you want. And it's crazy how you mentioned that, like, in order to get to what you want, you have to go through this pain of, whatever it is that you're trying to get through, because on the opposite side of that is, whatever it is that you're seeking. And we don't know that necessarily, because you don't know if you're gonna get to the other side. I didn't know. I just said, like, I didn't want to feel that again. So that was part of, I guess, like, my manifestation, but I was willing to put myself through that. And as long as have the willingness to kind of fight for what you want, you'll get through it. Not around it. It's there. It's waiting on you, but you'll get through it. So very, very forthcoming with that. And then I also want to tackle, even with that, because a lot of people, well, not people, a lot of athletes, they don't talk about what it is that they go through when trying to, win a first place or win the Plaster Trophy or even try to go to the Olympia. It's very cliche as far as like, yeah, I just got to do the work no matter what, embrace the suck. But the mental part of what you go through and what it takes is not really discussed. So my question to you is, within the bodybuilding space, why do you feel mental health is not as discussed as far as being an intricate part of the sport? And what does mental health mean to you?
I think it's not discussed within our sport because uh, there is the idea that the stronger you are mentally, that there's a causal relationship between your ability to endure and that a lack thereof is an indication of performance, which I just don't believe. I don't think it has to be black and white. I think it's pretty surface level to assume that, oh, this person, their ability to disassociate is why they're successful. No, like the people at the top are successful largely because of genetics, but also because of timing, also because of the effort. And maybe part of that effort is despite a lack of resilience or a lack of disassociation. But I was always one of those people that thought, okay, just don't feel it and you'll get through it. And that's the secret. I think over time, I mean, maybe it's maturity, maybe it's just sitting and really reflecting on what those preps felt like for me. I think rather than disassociating, I think it's much more favorable to feel it, go through it, immerse yourself in it, and then let
Mhm.
it go. And like, I mean, I think the idea, this concept of like running from the hunger, like I always associate those feelings at low body fats. You feel like you're high or drunk and like you don't get to turn it off. It turns off when you gain body fat. To me, that's very scary for someone who likes to have control. Well, how do you
Mm.
combat that? You accept that like you're only in control of your voluntary actions and your opinions. So everything past that, this feeling, this physiological effect of the cascade of hormones that is expected. That's not in your control. What's in your control is putting yourself in that situation physiologically. To me, that's the weighted blanket. Like that's what makes it a little more manageable. Is, oh no, I this is what I signed up for. It's the shit and the reward. It's the feeling like you're on this roller coaster. You can't really get off. But you know what's on the other side? Like it's not always going to be a reward. It's not going to be the accolades, the ceremonial process of winning, but you just put yourself through this 4 month period of growth when you didn't have to. No one made it. Like you created it artificially. And I mean, to me, that's really rewarding.
Yeah, it definitely is. And for the longest time, I always felt like, well, this is a warrior sport on the male and the, the female side, where no, like you can't display weakness in a sense or talk about your feelings and, so on and so forth, which in life outside of bodybuilding, I'm like the complete opposite. So for a long time, I'm bottling these things up, not talking to, my wife or friends or, anybody. Cause that, when you first come in, you don't really know too many people. And it's just like, man, like, why am I struggling? Well, the big reason is because I don't have a space to be vulnerable. Like I don't have a space to communicate. Like, man, yesterday was tough, man. I wanted to quit. It was hard. My coach had me doing this. Like, I don't know. And then, you have close friends or whoever to kind of say, no, like, just keep going. You'll be okay. For like the first 3 years, it was none of that. So I guess my question is it okay or can we be vulnerable in the bodybuilding space? And what does that look like?
To some degree, yes. I think when it stops becoming productive, I think there needs to be limitations on the vulnerability in some aspects, and who you're vulnerable with. That matters a lot. I mean, like with anything in life, if you're seeking advice, are you seeking to be heard? These are all questions you kind of have to know before you open up. Also, it's important to understand the biases someone else is going to bring when offering advice or even offering a
Mm,
listening ear. I have people that I know love me very much and care about me, and they they would understand and they would even encourage me to not suffer, to do to do anything but the thing I'm doing. And you mentioned this earlier, and I wanted to circle back because I think it's so relevant for this topic. When you have someone that knows that you can handle the suffering and actually knows like, hey, where you can be if you endure this, like the person you can be. God, I want to see you, I want to help you see that out because like you're gonna be a fucking monster. Sorry, I didn't realize I was gonna curse this much. I hope that's
no,
okay.
you're perfectly fine. Trust me.
um, but I I really like I have this just unmatched respect for those people in my life who are like, I know you can handle this, even if it feels like you can't see it. Like you gotta sit with it. You gotta keep going because the things you need to do, they're gonna require you're better than where you are. And I mean the like to me, that is like a form of love. Um, Not everyone is gonna have that for you. I have people that I care very deeply about that aren't that way. They frankly, I have a belief they probably don't think I can handle it. It's sad, like, it's sad, so it's like when you're vulnerable with someone, you gotta know, what they're bringing to the table, their perspective of you, I guess they're tied to you, and whether or not the advice they're giving is to kinda ease what you're going through, is it really helpful? Or is this something that maybe, like, maybe you just need to be vulnerable with yourself about how you're actually feeling, maybe that's the best person uh to really answer these questions.
That makes sense. And I do that a lot more now, along with, talking to, my own, personal therapist. It's funny because they tell you like in school, like, hey, like I know you're going to school to be a therapist, but you're gonna need your own soon. And for a while, I was just like, okay, yeah, whatever. Like I would like kind of just throw it off. But now I'm like, like you got life happening, you got prep happening, you got parenthood happening. Like, yeah, I need someone to actually bounce these things off. But I'll also, consult with myself. Like when I do like my deep breathing at night and just try to, be present and be in the moment and be mindful of, the positive things that are going on. Like you said, we volunteer to put our own self through, the shit that we go through. Like no one's forcing me to do this. So the fact that I'm able to get up every day and actually have a chance to get better, yeah, you should actually embrace that. So it's kind of a shift in, the mindset and the, the words that I'm choosing to use instead of, oh my, I don't get no carbs tomorrow. Come on, coach, refeed something like I don't even
Yeah.
ask for that stuff no more because it's not relevant to the task. The task is day by day, moment by moment.
Mm.
If I get it, cool. If I don't, I don't. But yeah, before it was, yeah, this is a struggle.
Yeah. I mean, I hear you, and I think it's okay to admit when it is hard. I think denying that to save face, I just I see a lot of people doing that, or even like overcompensating in what they're saying so much. Oh, I love being hungry, and I'm like, yeah, I don't. I do not.
Right.
I like food. Like, call me crazy. I'm a human, and I think I think the first step in allowing people to feel comfortable with these struggles to ultimately develop a skill in how to handle these struggles, I think that comes from seeing people who've been doing it a long time, who have objectively seen success, seeing them admit to these things, like, "Hey, you're not crazy. Like, it's okay. Like, it took me years to have some to be able to have some kind of method of coping with these things, and even then, it's like, the next time I prep, I'm gonna hit those lows. I expect it, and I think when you expect it, it's much more manageable, particularly with hunger. The physiological side versus the self-doubt, okay, like, 2 different things completely. The self-doubt,
Mhm.
something athletes have to work on themselves outside of a prep. You're not gonna be able to correct that when you're in prep, you're just not. You can read the inner game in tennis like me and be like, "No, I'm absorbing it, like, it's great, it's making an impact." No, dude, do that when your ghrelin isn't through the roof, when you're not, like, low body fat, but I do think running from the hunger is a very, very common thing, and I think it was Alberto Nunez with Team 3DMJ who talked about this, how, like, this concept of not expecting to be hungry, like, I'm gonna biohack and optimize my way to not experience hunger. It's like, what kind of sport do you wanna do? Because you can be hot and be fit without, like, killing yourself. Like, we're on the extreme side, okay? So, like, that's a part of it, is, like, that last leg, that's the part that it's unbearable. It's gonna be unbearable the first time you do it until you get a system in place. It's okay. It's what we're
But
signing up for.
I have a system in place, and I kid you not, if I'm up past 11, it's gonna be a problem. So I try to make sure I'm sleep by, and half the time it'd be my fault because again, like I'm back working in the office. So when I come home and I haven't seen my daughter all day or my wife, like, hey, what have you guys been doing? Like, what's going on? My daughter wants to cartwheel all over the place because she's in gymnastics. And then I look up and it's like 10:45, and I'm like, I had my last meal about 2.5 hours ago. We need to get to bed now because once that growling starts, it's
Mhm.
never ending, and that's what's keeping you up. And off season, I'll run downstairs fast. All right, let me just grab something to kind of subside it. And when you're in prep, you can't do that, so you just gonna have to deal with it. So knowing it's coming helps. You still got to deal with it. Your body don't care whether it's coming or not. Like you're gonna deal with this.
Would I have a Okay, so I have a question for you. Would you compare that ability to regulate your system, would you compare that to someone who's experiencing, like, high anxiety, a large degree of anger, like, in a moment, like, when you're feeling a lot of those emotions around hunger or fatigue, even just stress, um, would you say there's some overlap there?
I believe it's overlap in the management aspect. And what I mean by that is, like you said, having a system in place. So whenever I feel anxious about anything, I practice my mindfulness techniques. Sometimes I'll forget in the midst of the day, like, hey, I have these tools in my pocket. I need to use them. And then I kind of just let those things sink in and try to just navigate myself through the water. Same thing with hunger. Like I have these tools and resources in place to where I don't need to feel this feeling. So the management part, there is overlapping, but I say all that to say this. I I can't portray how I feel or manage things onto someone else. So someone who's suffering from anxiety and depression, they may be on the severe side of things where they're experiencing catastrophic thoughts, where they're experiencing the lows way more than the highs, or they're contributing situations that just keeps beating them down. And the same thing with the hunger. You may be hungry because you just may not be used to this low amounts of food, and this is your first time going through it, and now you don't know what to do. So it's just like, okay, I should never feel like this again. Let me go snack, 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 so I don't feel this. I can't portray how I feel or how I manage it onto others, whether it's anxiety, depression, or the hunger part. But the overlapping part is, if you can find a way to manage it effectively without causing any more harm or risk to yourself on any side of those spectrums, you should practice those things. So the management part, I feel like, if they listen to you and they watch the podcast and they try to pick up on these tools that a lot of pros will talk about, then you'll kind of build your bag in a sense. But if you just want to go through it on your own, or find a way to quit, or you just want to go keep yourself within those anxious feelings, those depressive feelings, without possibly going to go talk to someone, or if you believe in Western medicine, you want to go take medication, or if you believe in holistic medicine and you want to practice ways of that, then yeah, you should do those things. But if not, then you're going to have a hard time managing all three if you're going through all three.
Oh, totally. Totally. And I think, like on that note, it can feel overwhelming to not have any tools with you or to not know what tools you have. And that's where I think the first time is probably going to be the hardest. But you build that self efficacy even as an adult. I truly believe in that. And the more times you do it and get through it without having to use a coping mechanism that is harmful, that is detrimental, I think it can get better. I think that skill is just something you got to practice. And a lot of people will stop before they practice. They'll just, I don't want to feel this ever again. So I'm going to overcompensate. But then what do you know? The next time they want to diet, maybe there is that barrier now around a certain scale weight or a certain caloric number that they associate. That's when I feel that way. It's terrifying. I don't want to feel that again. Sometimes it is a matter of, okay, you're not going to handle this the best. And I am not advocating like cheating on your diet during prep, but there is a difference between like going in and having like, you know what, I'm going to have 170 grams of an apple versus I'm going to have 1,300 calories of things that are just in my pantry. You know, I've been on both ends. Like I've done both. And I'm like, oh yeah, there's a good, better, best methodology to this. One that is easier to correct. You get the speed wobbles. You're like, you know what? Okay, I had something that wasn't on my plan, but I didn't binge. I didn't let this turn into a thing. Now I got to figure out, how did I get in that position in the first place? Am I not paying attention to what I'm experiencing on a regular basis? Is that stress becoming so unmanageable? And then I find myself in the kitchen just pacing, just like, what can I satisfy this emotion with, or this feeling with? I think oftentimes it's that buildup of not managing that stress and those feelings throughout the day that then is like, well, what did you think was going to happen? Of course, this was predetermined. Oh, it happens every day around the same time. What do you know? Like, let's put some tools in place. Let's like scale it back. It's 11:20. Okay. Have you felt anxious at all today? No? Sweet. We know that's a really good period for you to think about the tools that you have access to. And maybe those tools are deep breathing, even if it's, you know what? Okay, I've been working a little too long. I need to go out. I need to set a timer and go do a 5-10 minute walk. I just need like not to be staring at a screen. Oh, well, my partner's a little moody. It's kind of affecting my mood. Maybe I don't need to communicate in this moment, but maybe I need to get some space, or I need to just like just shake it off. Just do something to kind of get away from that energy. Everyone's situations are different, but I think when you can identify like, okay, what variables are collectively leading you to this same outcome, let's work backwards. Let's work the problem.
There you go. And that's part of the management part. you have to be able to manage these things, whether you're managing it by yourself or you have a support system in place to kind of help you effectively manage those things. And I've been on both sides too, where I want, all right, let me just go eat a cup of egg whites real quick, or I'll go down there and I'll start fixing up all kind of stuff I have no business doing it. To be honest with you, that makes it worse, because not just for your body, but mentally. Because, and I'll speak for me, that moment I've done that where I binge, it's almost euphoric, where it's like, oh my God, like I haven't had this stuff in so long. That euphoric moment will leave you so fast when you're done, because it's just like, oh my God, I shouldn't have ate that. You wake up, jump on the scale. Oh my God. Like, it starts snowballing to a bunch of negative stuff. So yeah, the management part of your emotions, your feelings, and all the stuff leading up into the day, the stress, that matters, how you manage these things.
Absolutely. And even even considering, okay, like the consequences, like you're gonna relive that binge and the shame cycle around that. Now you are creating a pattern there. And I think like that is one of the things in a prep for myself. I know that's the point in which like I gotta shut it down. Like it's not gonna get better from here. Like with my last prep, there wasn't a point of binging, but there was a point where adherence was rocky. And I'm like, you know what? I've reached the capacity which I can handle. I want to do 6 more shows. Not going to be able to. Like this is my limit right now with the skills I have, with the tools I have. I need to I need to fold before I end up in a position like I have previous preps where I'm injured. I've already committed to these shows. I'm like, well, you're getting on stage whether you look like shit or not. Like you
Yes.
already are here. So and that feeling is haunting. And I think like when you can at least take a pause, particularly with the food, and be like, okay, pick what do you want? Tomorrow, do you want to get on the scale and hate yourself? Or do you want to hate yourself until you fall asleep right now for the next like 17 minutes? Because like you can be mad and you can be pissed and be like, why did I pick this sport? Like, oh, I don't trust my coach. He's not, this, that. You can create all these like narratives. One is gonna fade a lot sooner than the other. And a good night's sleep. I mean, I promise you're gonna wake up. I'm gonna be shocked if 8 hours of unconsciousness results in you still being in that same mood. It could happen, but it's unlikely.
Very unlikely for sure. And I'll choose that 17 minutes of uncomfortableness than binging. I can't do that no more, because I'm a foodie at heart by nature. I'm predisposed to being big as a little child. So yeah, I need to stay out the pantry. My wife's a baker too. That doesn't help. So
Man.
yeah, it's a lot of stuff around me, but I wanted to touch on a couple more things, or maybe one, before I let you out of here, because again, if anyone follows Miss Cory, she's very educational as far as what we go through on the PED side or the mental side. And if you guys have a chance, her Instagram will be at the bottom. Follow it, you'll see it going through. You brought up a post regarding the misrepresentation of success athletes have is attributed to only PEDs. Like, there's a misconception regarding that. I kind of wanted to invert it a little bit, because, and I'll speak for myself on this one too, as far as like my body changing the way it has, thinking it was like, okay, if I don't have these things, or if I'm not taking this, then my body's not going to change. So my question to you is, well, two part, like, how often do you see that in within the athletes? And then what do you feel the effects of PEDs play on the mental health?
I see it very often. An I'm surprised when I don't see it, and I'm fortunate that
Hmm.
a lot of people that come to me do have a similar respect for drugs in our sport. I'm very grateful that that's the audience that I've built. So majority of the consult calls, yeah, like 50% at least are the ones that are like, just tell me what to take. I don't care about the safety profile, but don't turn me into a dude. So they've got these conditions and I'm like, cool. Two completely opposite things. You want to just throw stuff in here, but You want no risk. Part of PED use is understanding the risk that's associated with everything that we do, whether you acknowledge it or not. Like you ever have someone who's like, well, I track macros, but I'm not going to track that overage. The calories still count. Like you're still incurring those calories. They add up. And like, if you are like me, you can put down a lot of food and it's like, I can do damage. Like it's very important that I acknowledge what I'm doing. So with PEDs, it's like it's the same thing. You can say, well, yeah, I had to. I mean, that's the thing. Everyone has to. Everyone's at that point in their career where it's do or die. This is going to make the difference. I can tell you, no amount of want or desire to turn pro is going to guarantee that you turn pro. So when you consider what risk, what are you putting on the line? What are you betting that statistically there's a very good chance you're going to lose? It's your femininity. I mean, like I growing up, like I didn't associate with being a very like girly girl. So it's ironic now, and it's amazing you asked that question to begin with. Is like right now, as someone who didn't really value the standard of femininity for majority of my life, I was very much a tomboy. Now I'm like, wow, I'm in a position where it's actually encouraged to give that up, and I don't want to give it up. I'm like, no, like I don't want to not be a girl. I don't want to lose these aspects of myself that I do consider feminine. Now, what is the role play for individuals? I mean, it's twofold because you have girls who haven't incurred virilization. You have girls who are curious and they might not even have a pulse on the risk that they're taking. Those individuals, I mean, it could go either way. They could let that inner voice be like, you know what, just do it. It won't be that. I'm sure it will never happen. You're getting it from the same guy that your girlfriend got it from, and she didn't virilize. You have that little kind of devil on your shoulder. Then you have the girls who have virilized. And for them, I think that this is a much more prevalent question. What does it do to them? Well, they either will or won't accept that they've changed their body and they played a direct role in that decision-making process. I don't say that to shit on them, but it is like you made a decision whether you are informed or not to do something. And if you're not informed, like you really made a decision to roll the dice. At the very least, even if you weren't informed of the risk, anything related to drugs, like anything related to something you're not fully understanding of, you should be doing your due diligence. Now, there are individuals who I do feel like fall into this narrow demographic who truly didn't know what they were doing. And, you know, do we want to put a label of victims on that? You can, but ultimately, I do think there's enough information out that you should be protecting yourself. You should be advocating for yourself. And if you were told by a coach, well, no, this is comparable to a fat burner, it's comparable to Yohimbine, it's like, sweet. If it's Clen, amazing. If it's T4, T3, are we talking Anavar? Yeah. Okay, that's not the same thing. And like, we live in a day and age, you got so much access. And like, I know even in our space,
Ridiculous.
there's not a lot of people who talk about it, but there are a lot of people who talk about it still. So then I have to question and be like, hey, did you really want to know the risk you were taking? And it's okay if you were scared. It's okay to admit that. But it's hard to really shake that responsibility when you didn't even try. Like you didn't try to do any research, you didn't ask questions, you didn't inquire with the coach, like, hey, what are the side effects? I think it can be very detrimental. And one thing I am trying to move forward with and be very conscious of is the way I talk about virilization specific to women who've already virilized, because my intention is not to insult them. It's not to make them feel like they're not feminine, but it is to advocate for people who would fall into that same trap and be told, no, it'll never happen to you. They're 22 and now they're 24 and they don't sound like a woman.
Right.
And they didn't realize it. They didn't know that's what they were signing up for.
Well, so to piggyback on that last question, do you feel it's pressure that athletes coming into the sport of bodybuilding once I call this like an underworld for the underworld, like you don't know what's in it till you're in it. So, do you feel like it's pressure for those who come into the sport to actually start using PEDs based off whatever it is that they see on Instagram? Like, oh, they look like this because you think they're taking this, or a friend tells you, well, yeah, if you take this, you'll look like this. Do you feel like that pressure is just so much where they force themselves to do so?
Totally. And I do think on some level I was the same way. I wanted to believe that it was as simple as taking Anavar. Like I've used Anavar before incorrectly, and what do you know? It didn't result in the thing I thought it was going to do.
Mhm.
What did was spending a year being really uncomfortable in my body because I was eating in a way that didn't feel conducive with being a better athlete. It took training and treating training as serious as I do prep. It was setting a bedtime and knowing like, "Hey, you want your training to go well tomorrow? You gotta get your sleep. You gotta get hydrated. How many times are you gonna miss these boxes? And then you're gonna wind up complaining about not getting the results that you coulda gotten. You're gonna do that for another 6 months." Like, that's the part. I was there. I wish it was as simple as, like, just taking the drug. You can take the drug without everything else in place that has to be in place. Like, those are the essentials. They're the non-negotiables, and sadly, yeah, that pressure, that belief that, nope, it's just the drug. That's what I'm missing. It sucks to be told you're missing a lot more than that. You're missing so much. And like, I'm 10 years in and I'm like, sucks to be told your training is not that good, dude. Like, it sucks to be told you need to eat more, even though you want to eat more, but you don't know how to eat more without overdoing it. It's like, yeah, that's the work. That's the hard part.
Wow. Yeah, I'm shocked, but I'm shocked in a sense of just like, again, the boxes you need to check, the simple boxes. Hey, you might increase the intensity of your training, increase your ability to use correct form. Hey, you probably should get 8 hours of sleep instead of 3. Hey, you probably don't need that much caffeine. Hey, like the little things, like, so yeah, you hit it right on the nose with that one. Oh man, I wish I could talk to you all day. I could sit here and just learn. And thank you so much, Miss Cory. You were amazing, amazing. Any advice you want to give out to those who want to enter the sport of bodybuilding? Just even for pros, if you have any advice that you want to give to people, what would you say?
Your training is gonna move the needle the most, and if you don't have someone managing your training, there's a very, very small chance you're doing it correctly, and I know we don't wanna hear that. I didn't wanna hear that. You need someone who's gonna be able to specialize in this and who's gonna be able to correct what's not being done correctly. So I mean, I think if you can do it yourself, amazing. Don't don't think that the high volume isolation work is it's not gonna that's not how you build glutes, I promise you. Like you gotta do more than that. You gotta do the harder thing, the thing that is much harder than just the bands and the pump work and then 35 sets in a workout. Like it's not effective. It's not.
All right, ladies, y'all heard that. Y'all better listen and take notes. Thank you so much, Miss Cory. I appreciate you so much.
Thank you so much.
No problem. Stay on for a little bit. We'll see y'all in the next one. Peace.
Today's episode is brought to you by Chulaware, the largest provider of board shorts, bodybuilding trunks, and briefs in the world. Visit their IG at Chula Styles or their website, teamchulafitness.com.